washroom. It's sizable on the bars because basically we have families that come in. And,
Makes
you know,
sense.
usually it's child in a wheelchair and other kids, or it's people needing assistance. You need room.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, I like this. I've never noticed this before.
Well, we used to have toys prior to COVID. Toys were in that
Oh,
cabinet.
that's cute. Yeah.
Yeah, so we put that up there for the kids. And then
So patient comes in here.
they come in. The room number will be where they go, and so my room is 2, and so usually I have people come in there. And then this room here, more peds. So, you know, we got the shark in the wall. We got the kangaroo there and then a raccoon. So you're all with little braces on, right? So
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm gonna point that out.
yeah, and you know the shark's got an elbow brace, and they measure themselves up against here, and Greg takes pictures of them, and they like that. And I'm bigger this time.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. So that's just this room, and that room's a mess. It's our off-the-shelf room, which is a total disaster because those got shoes. But then in the back, then,
So thank you again for agreeing to do this.
not a problem.
Okay, so can we start with, I guess, a very, very broad question. What is OBS?
Orthopedic Bracing Solutions is a company created in 1997 by myself. I'm a certified orthopedist, registered technician in orthotics and prosthetics. So we make custom devices for people basically from the foot to the head. Most of our work is made here. We do send some out. And in recent years, more going out because some of the systems are better than they used to be. And so predominantly we're here with certified orthotists and with registered orthotic technicians.
Great. Okay. So what is the process, I suppose, to getting an orthosis? How does it go step by step?
So to get in the door here, we need a prescription from a doctor. So we want to know, because as certified orthotists, we are not a regulated profession. There's not enough of us in the country to do that. Even if we had all of us together in one province, there's not enough of us to run a regulated college due to the huge expense of those colleges. So as an association, one of the sort of protectors of the patient then would be the doctor referral. So we know that the doctor's seen the patient, that there is a need, and so sometimes the doctor will be very specific, other times the doctor will be, please provide a device for their lower leg. And so then we'll go through the process of determining what is necessary and then respond back to the doctor to say, here's what we think, would you be in agreement to this? And ask for them to sign a prescription, whether it be a prescription for the purpose of insurance or a prescription for the purpose of the government through the assistive devices program.
Okay. And so once that's been approved and they're in the clinic, can you walk me through step by step how you eventually get an orthosis into someone's hands?
Right. So basically they come into the room, do your basic meet and greet. We get all the history of them. So we ask for the geographical stuff. You know, we want to know in the stuff like age, height, weight, basic stuff, but it's important to know. Diagnoses. Are there other diagnoses? Is it, what's the main problem? What do they see as the main problem? Because what the doctor writes and what they see may be two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that becomes a discussion later. And then we look at everything from sensation, muscle strength, range of motion. We have them walk if it's for lower leg. And we're looking at test results they provide us with, usually not much. Sometimes the doctor's notes will have information. So then we do the gait assessment, and then once we've done all that stuff, we can sort of in our minds say, well, here's what I think would be appropriate. And we would discuss then what it would do for them, what it wouldn't do. And, you know, is that something they're interested in? And if so, then we discuss costs, because it's important that they understand, even with the government, there's this The government will pay 75%. You're still responsible for 25%. It can be hundreds of dollars or it can be thousands of dollars depending what we're making. So those costs need to be upfront and clear, and that way the patient can make a decision, is now the time to do this? Do I even have the money? Is there barriers to that? Do I need to go and talk to, family, or do I just write you a check? So that's important to know. And then we talk about time frames, and we talk about, is this a device that I feel you must have physiotherapy with? So, and in that case, I can give them a number of names of physiotherapists who work with more neurological cases in those cases. So neural trained physios are trained differently than orthopedic trained physios. And when we're dealing with bracing, that is who we would prefer. And with that comes, a little more money per hour to see them, but the benefit is there. So then, do they have the money for the therapy? So not always does the brace need the therapy, but if I feel that both need it, then we talk about, well, so now we're talking another $500 to $1,000 for therapy. Is that a possibility? And, if they have insurance, usually that's not a problem. So there's a lot that goes into just the whole idea of, even before we cast them, here's what it can do, here's what it would cost, are you agreeable to this? And then here's the process of how we will do it. I'll cast you today, you'll come back in approximately 3 weeks, we'll fit you, it'll take an hour to an hour and a half depending what I'm doing, and then you'll come back 3 weeks later and you're going to tell me what's good and bad, and we'll go through that, and if we need to set up another appointment, you'll come back. I always tell them I'm a phone call away, because things happen. If the body changes, the brace doesn't change until I change it. So if you're starting to get pressures, you're not going to get used to it. It's not a shoe that you're going to break in. I have to do the adjustment. And so you need to come back and see one of our orthotists and get it fixed. And so there's responsibilities to the patient. If you're not going to be responsible about this, then we're not going to go forward. If we're dealing with patients with sensory impairment like diabetes, some neuropathies, we need to know that they have, in some cases, family support, friend support, that there's someone there to look and make sure, because if they can't see the bottom of their foot and I'm putting something on that foot and it rips open and you can't feel it, we don't want an amputation. So infections, amputations are huge, and they happen, and I've had that happen to me. So I had one patient go on to an amputation after I put a device on them, and you just don't forget that. So there's a lot of caution that goes into this, as well as sort of enthusiasm. And here's what's the possibilities. So that's what goes into just getting the device. So there's a lot of discussion, a lot of on my end questions to be answered. If I can't get the questions, so today we had a patient in, and she came with, here's what the therapist wants, here's what the doctor wants. We assess the patient. They don't match. So I need to talk to the doctor. I need more information from the therapist. We need to meet again. And that's where that goes. So sometimes it's not a clean, here's where we are. And there's some devices that we just say, this is a very difficult device to wear. And so are you willing to go through the challenges of wearing this? And if it's no, then we're not going forward.
That makes sense. Cool. Okay, so let's focus on, I guess, since we're talking about patients, I guess, what's the breakdown or division of your most common patients and their impairments?
So our most common devices are lower extremities, so below the hip.
Yep.
Most of those impairments are lower back, nerve impingement, it can be MS, muscular dystrophy, CP. So those we deal with quite often, ankle foot orthosis, so a device that goes from below the fibular head down over the ankle. And those are all built differently for different needs. So you want to only brace what you need to functionally help. You never want to over brace. In cases with some of the muscular dystrophies and MS, weight is an issue always. So what can we do with the least amount of bracing, and then will that work? Not always what you make works. So sometimes you have to go to plan B, which you create that day, because you don't know.
Yeah.
So here's the best guess I have, based on all this I've done, all the information you've given me, let's make the device. Does it work? Oh, it's not working. We need to revise it, and that's just part of the system.
Yeah. And I know it's a lot more granular than the question I'm about to ask you, but what's the most common approach or goal for bracing? Is it pressure distribution, joint locking, that type of thing?
Well, most common would be to get up and walk again.
Okay.
So that's try to gain some kind of mobility in a joint that's either non-functioning due to lack of musculature, or dealing with high tone. So can we control the tone and keep the foot in a proper position so you can walk forward? So those are probably it. If you get to spinal, then it's more stability and stabilization, and then we're teaching people to log roll and how to sit properly, and necks are a whole different world. Everything from I have to keep it so when you turn you won't go paralyzed, to you just need it on for muscle assistance, if you have a drop neck, something like that. Every device has different things. You'll see a lot now of children with cranial helmets on young children. Those are worn for a short period of time, and the idea of that is to remold, the cranium, so that we get a more uniform shape, because there's usually a flat side due to some muscle weaknesses, etc. So every type of device has sort of a different goal, and every patient brings in different needs and goals.
Yeah. That's the feeling that I think a lot of people are going to get out of this, is that there's a lot of finesse into it and picking. I guess just for the students, in terms of, you said legs, so legs would be number one. What would you say are your second and third most common?
Spinal.
Spinal second?
Yeah, and third now is starting to be helmets for pediatrics.
Okay.
Used to be upper extremity. We
Okay.
still do quite a bit of upper extremity, but the helmets for pediatrics is getting to be, I guess, popular, or just more heard of, and more common sense. More common now, because years ago when we had children, they slept in all positions. Now they want them sleeping on their backs, and we tend to get more head deformities from that.
Interesting.
So versus SIDS, which happened when they rolled.
Yeah.
So this is sort of something we're seeing more often now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've already partially answered this, so I'll try to avoid re-stepping on toes on this. But how dependent is your process for creating a good fit on the input of the user? So, how much you rely on communicating with your patient.
Right.
How much do you need from them in order to create a good fit?
Well, okay, if we just stick with lower legs.
Yeah.
So if someone comes in and we see them early morning, and they don't say my legs swell by the end of the day, and we cast them, and then they come back for a 3 o'clock fitting. I can't get their leg in. That's pretty important.
Okay. Yeah.
So then those people we would normally see later in the day. Or we would say, can you start to wear compression hose, and we'll see you in 4 or 6 weeks after you've started wearing them, and you should be more stable. And so that's a note back to the doctor, would it be appropriate to put compression on this patient? And so that's one of the biggest things that hits us is, and then change of meds.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
sometimes doctors don't realize it. We're just going to change this med. I'm in the middle of making brace, and then they come back and it's like, you were once like this big and now you're this big. I have to recast you. I don't get paid to do that. So I get paid once.
Yeah.
So those things, those little things that people just do because well, how will that ever affect you? They do affect us. So you need that input from the patient. And if it's not there, so if the patient's not able to answer, because some are aphasic, you need the family or a friend to be able to say, no, this is right or wrong.
Yeah. Okay, that's really important, and actually answers one of my questions,
Okay.
which is good. So let's say family and friends, right? So we have someone who's aphasic that can't talk or can't communicate for the class. What about someone who is unable to communicate their pain to you, like say someone with advanced distal neuropathy from diabetes?
Well, we see a lot of that.
Yeah.
So I look for skin discoloration,
Okay.
sores, if it gets to that point. I look for, so with peds, you look for pain, you look for, why aren't they walking like they normally walk? So, you know, a kid, you put braces on a kid, if they're happy, they run up and down and they jump. Okay, you're good. Adults don't do that.
Yeah.
They walk very slowly and go, oh, I don't know. So we have to look for skin issues. We have to look for, as soon as you take the brace off, if they're wearing, I like my diabetics to wear white socks because everything shows. So dirt, but blood. Seepage from wounds shows. If you're wearing black socks, no. You take it off, you know, what do you see in the foot? You have to inspect it.
Yeah.
And so if they're neuropathic and it's affecting the sensory nerves, not the motor nerves, then we're saying we need to really pay attention to this. And that's when we're telling them, you need to get a mirror that can be positioned on the floor if you can't bend over, and put your foot in front of it and look at it at night, every day. Look at it. They can't go in bathtubs because they can't tell you whether they can go in bathtubs, but they can burn themselves because they can't tell you how hot that water is.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them will go into a tub and burn their skin. So, you know, it's when you have sensory issues, aphasic issues, or you have people who just have no one. There are people who have no friends, no family, no one. They're on their own. You just have to be really cautious and ask a lot more questions, and, you know, look at things a lot differently.
Yeah. Okay. That one we've already kind of covered. This one we've already kind of covered. I suppose I'll ask, my intuition is saying probably very little, but how much input does the user get in sort of what the orthosis looks like or how the orthosis functions? Let's keep it all actually just for the rest of the interview below leg, because I think most people are interested in that.
Well, we allow them to put transfers on, so, you know, they can pick a color.
Yeah.
They can pick a color, they can pick a transfer.
Do you mind, I think I noticed you showed me that last time I was here, pulling it down, the transfer.
Oh, this one here we did with
Yeah.
baseball bat with the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
This guy was a big Blue Jay fan. So we did that one, and you look at, these are getting moved around. This one is just a purple butterflies, you know, a little milder. This is the normal plastic is just clear.
Mm-hmm.
So some people just want that, they don't want anything fancy. And then if you look at, that device is a carbon graphite.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, then that one over there is pure black. And then up here we got leathers. So when we do leather work, then we are trying to match shoes, whatever. So they have a lot of say in color, if we can provide it.
Yeah.
They will tell you that they don't like something, so you have to understand that as much as you want, you may not to be able to do it all the way, because they just won't accept it. Weight's always an issue. Sometimes componentry is an issue, especially if there's a lot of tone or if they're a large person, because now the componentry gets big.
Yeah.
And even though it's made with aircraft grade aluminum, it's just big and bulky.
Mm.
And they perceive that as heavy, even though it's reasonably light, but it's just bulky. So, but they do get quite a bit of say. Now, if it's an issue of what I think would be safe for them, I've come to a line that you're not going to cross. But if it's an issue that's negotiable, yeah, I'll talk to them.
Yeah. And then now I think we're going to get more into the weeds here. So actually, let's stay in this room in terms of my questions. Let's say you assess the individual for like a level of support that they need that is more than or less than what the doctor or physiotherapist has recommended. How do you address that?
Usually a letter to them or a discussion if I know them.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the one thing too, the big difference is when I'm dealing with adults, I have time to ask all these questions. When you're dealing with kids, if they're walking, you take a look because you might get 5 or 6 steps and that's it. Because some of them, as soon as they see you, they'll just cling to their mom or they're going to cry. So you're not going to get them doing a lot of crazy stuff, range of motion stuff. So kids is a different world, and like I said, when you put them on and they can walk, they'll just run and jump and they're done.
Yeah.
They're ready to go. Don't want to be here any longer. And so you ask them if it hurts. If it doesn't hurt, you just look at mom and say, okay, mom or dad, and say, let me know. And usually we get them back for follow-ups. If you've worn more than one brace, you know what to expect. So some will say, I'll set it up, but I'll probably cancel if I don't have a problem, and others will just say, I'll call if there's a problem. But they always know we're here. But peds are totally different ballpark.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then actually, I guess something that you mentioned with children in terms of the walking, you might only get 6 steps. Like ideally, what measurements would you like to get from children?
Well, I get them, this hallway's, 9 meters long.
Yeah.
So I'll get my patient to walk up and down. So they're going maybe 7 meters down, 7 meters back, 7 meters down, 7 meters back. And I pretty much figured them out. I may get them going twice up and down, sometimes more if I think that they're giving me the runway walk.
Yeah.
I want to get that out and get the more natural walk. But, and then we have some where you have to walk them I'll have them walk for 5 minutes and then their deficit starts to show. But for the first 5 minutes, they're perfectly fine. And so then they just do laps and I go do something else and come back. And yeah, so there's nothing that's standard. It's all unique.
Yeah.
All unique.
And for the camera, you don't record any of that either, which is really interesting and really cool.
Record in what sense?
So in terms of getting your patients to walk, I think this is sort of an interesting perspective for engineers, because this entire class is engineers. We're so used to recording everything.
Yes.
And we want to look at all the numbers and come up with the best solution from that. But even then, that's not necessarily the best solution. But with all that walking and with your observations and stuff, you don't record any of it, right?
Just written down my notes and what's can be remembered. The challenge of it would be lovely to have a gait lab.
Yeah.
So when I started in Winnipeg, they had a gait lab. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was in the 80s, provided by a foundation out there for kids. But you have the gait lab, but then you have to find the time to analyze it. So our problem is there's no time.
Yeah.
And so all those tools, which are wonderful, foot pressure tools, all that, are good information. It's just, do you have the time to even do the testing? And do you have the time to, will all that testing change what you're doing? Yeah. And in some cases, yes, it would, but at a cost. So I use a sensor system called Pressure Guardian that I can it's an 8-inch sensor that goes to a wire, and I can do up to 4 leads. Strap a little gizmo on here, and it's all wireless, other than what's here, and it comes down to pressure points on the foot, especially with wounds. It tells me pounds per square inch. I do that. Those leads are $75 my cost a piece. And then it's all the time to do it, all the testing you do. And you spend about 45 minutes doing it, and I get paid $0. The patient doesn't want to pay for the leads.
Yeah.
And so...
Oh, and do the leads get discarded after you use them?
So I sanitize them
Yeah.
and reuse them on the next. They never touch a wound.
I guess for cost scale, how many times can you use them before you have to throw them
I would
out?
say these ones, the new ones now, I can probably use about 15 times.
Okay, so very expensive.
Yeah, it adds up. And so one patient one day, you know, at 45 minutes, I'm up and walking. I'm doing probably 6-7 tests.
Yeah, and that counts as roughly 6-7 uses, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it adds up. So it comes as an interest, but at a cost for that interest. For my wounds, I use it. It's important. It's shown me that I don't know what I'm doing many times because I'll think I've offloaded the area, and how do I have 2 pounds per square inch there?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have none or half a pound. So they generally say half pound per square inch should get wound healing. Less than. It's hard to get that sometimes. And everybody doesn't want any big bulky stuff when you're offloading. You want little thin nothing.
Yeah.
Very difficult. But there's some great tools out there for pressure sensing. It's just it comes at a cost, and it comes then at a cost of time and a cost for all those sensors. And does it change what you're doing? In some cases it's very good, and in other cases it doesn't really change. So you have to pick your battle with which one you want, and then be willing to accept the cost of it.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so your casting process, can you give a very quick run through of the casting?
Changed a lot since I started 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So initially it was all plaster cast.
Right.
Then so plaster casting was very slow, time consuming, but you get a really nice cast because you can mold, and as it's setting you get that mold. Then they brought in extra fast plaster, which now it took from 15 minutes to 8 minutes. Really great. Still the same molding technique worked, you had time. Now they use synthetic casting, so 3M was the first one to come up with the fiberglass casting tape, similar to what you get when you break your foot. And we use that, but we cut it off and take it off before it becomes rigid. And we use a knife versus a cast cutter because we don't want it that rigid, you'll never get it off. And now they have synthetic resin soaked socks for foot orthotics.
Oh, cool.
You can go up to the ankle and you can come up here. They do pretty good a job. And then now we're starting to get into better scannings. So when I started, they had machines that would be about the size of this room, that people had a ladder that they stepped up on, and then they walked across a platform, and if they were below knee here, they would sit down on a chair and get lowered in, and that would get scanned by these cameras rotating, and it was noisy and flashing. That was 40 years ago. Now they have really nice scanners, and they do the scan. You modify it on the computer, and it gets carved onto a foam, and then you can do your whatever plastics laminates on that foam. Learning how to do that on the foam was a learning curve itself, and so this company called Vorum out of Vancouver that's very good at prosthetics and orthotic scanning, and Canadian, and they've been doing it for over 20 years. They're really good, and that system now has really refined itself to a more affordable, and now they start to lease versus purchase, because to purchase it's still 60, 80 grand. The carver's $250,000. You gotta have a separate room, it's gotta be air conditioned. No one can afford it. Big places can afford it, we can't.
Yeah.
And now they're bringing in more handheld on your phone scans, and depending on the company, the quality of those is pretty good, but not as good as the big scanners. And so we use our helmets, we do a scan. We used to do castings, but we do a scan out of a company in Florida called Orthopedic, and they have a very good program for the helmets. So those are made in Florida. So normally we made them all here, but they do a great job, and their education for our orthotists was 33 hours online of time, but it's never 33 hours because you're repeating and going back and trying to get, and then you do all the tests. So it's quite extensive. Yeah. Prior to COVID, you would go down for a weekend course or 3-day course. But with COVID, it had to be online. We're seeing more knee braces now being scanned. There's a company out of Quebec. Lady did her master's on a knee alignment, but also made a 3D printed knee brace called Evoke. The company is Oskian. And they've now come up with an ACL brace, 3D printed, and it's good. I mean, 8 ounces, you don't think it would work. it offloads. Most of the ones I've got them on are people over 250 pounds and it works.
Wow.
Versus these great big things.
Yeah.
So we're getting an evolution that's starting to really be interesting. There's another company out of Montreal that we use for a knee brace, and they make more of a traditional knee brace that's 3D printed, but it's scanned and it fits beautifully. So versus these that are done a little differently. So I think the scanning gives us a much better intimate fit. It's just getting us the ability to scan without having to invest in a really hugely expensive scanner that's only good for that one company.
Yeah.
And so now we're seeing iPhones.
Okay, so in terms of the manufacturing process, what are the steps, and then can you highlight which parts are automated and which are hands-on?
Okay.
So after taking the cast.
Okay, so we have the cast. So just look, Greg's got a few things. So we'll take a cast. So it comes to us like that. We pour it up plaster, then we have to modify it. So because we have to form a mold. So this one's in process, being modified. This one is then modified, so smoother, it's all done. Then we dry them in the oven, the one oven, and then we're going to put foam pads on it, and we have any with foam pads kicking around. Yeah, right here. Then we start with putting on foam pads, and then we'll put a nylon hose over it, and usually put talcum powder on it as a separator, and then we pull the plastic for that. And so when the plastic gets pulled, we look at this one here, it just gets dusty. Then once the plastic's on, you have to decide, so this one took 2 molds, we had to do the foot first, then the top. In this case, it's a lateral knee joint and upright only, because it's medial OA, and she's so big her legs are together medially. So we have to pull it this way. And in this one, these are really heavy duty bars, way bigger than normal. They're 3/8 thick. Will kill me, Ben. So, and then sometimes you have to take joints. So this one has double action pins. We don't need any of that, but it's the only one this size. And then these I'm going to end up taking away so it's free motion. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to take one thing and make it another. That's just part of the process. And here what we had to do, because it's all one bar, one side, because the insides we don't have room. This is more flexible. This is doubled up because that's where we're putting the bars we need it stronger. So we'll grind that and blend all that edge in. But that'll be, this is 5 millimeter. We'll end up at 4 millimeter. This will end up at about 8, 9 millimeters. And then our bars will be secured on that with copper rivets. And so I don't know where all those parts are right now. And then for things like, here's one here in the process. It just got molded. And so sometimes the plastic will splay, so they'll just tape it up at night. And it's in the process of being taken apart. And all those get ground to those lines. And then this will come out. The plastic is all finished and this gets put back in. This transition here is always important. And in the 3D one I had made, the KFO, I had a footbed. He had that transition, you couldn't even tell. It was beautiful. So that's where I'm hoping, that's the benefits of some of that. So I think there are some good pluses coming with that. So just one less thing to irritate the skin of the patient, right? So which is good. And then, so then different braces do different things. So this one is going to be ground off, and it's called posterior leaf spring. So it will allow the toe to pick up and then to bend back a bit. This is similar. It's going to do the same thing, but I put joints here, and they're not at the ankle center, which is biomechanically wrong, but it works because this person is very active with bending, and they snap this one all the time. So you have to go, how do I make something that's not big? They don't want me to come around the front of the ankles, and I don't need to, but it's not going to break. So this was my, I created this. So we're the only ones that make it, I think. Works great. And then, you know, foot orthotics, we don't tend to see the normal foot orthotics. So this gal has, I think she was polio as a child from India, but she had surgery in one. And so she basically just, all her weight is here. She never puts weight here or here. So she pivots off the middle. And when she walks, it's like walking a rotating foot. So we're trying to give her weight here and here. So this is thick and this is thick. That's thin. Trying to get her in a shoe that she'll accept and be happy. So just, we get stuff that's a little unique. And then in the sense of colors, we talked about giving patients options. So it's colorful. And then this patient wanted two different. Got the snakes. Got the blue camouflage. So for whatever reason why she wanted those two, we don't know, but she was very happy with that. And then, well, let's go into the oven room. So in here then we have two ovens. So this is like a convection oven that you would see in a restaurant. And we dry our casts in here because the fan goes. This is basically a pizza oven that I bought 26 years ago out of Toronto. And now they have infrared ovens, much nicer, but it works. We put a tray in it with Teflon that's perforated, so to keep the plastic from getting air bubbles underneath. And it keeps the heat more even. And the disadvantage of this is it takes about an hour and a half to warm up in the morning, whereas infrared lights, you turn them on, it's pretty much there.
Yeah.
The heat's what needs to be heated.
Yeah.
And so, but you know, this is what I could afford 20 years ago, and today a new infrared oven's about $26,000. We're not there. And then in here we just have it so that we can do whatever we have to do. So, you know, for fortifieds, the different kind of press, where we can do one or two, depending sizing, and then this comes down. We just put vacuum to it, and then that silicone sucks down. The nice part of the silicone is we can take a heat gun and we can heat the material as well if it's not warm enough in certain areas, and it won't burst. Or you don't touch it with a heat gun. It won't burst the silicone, and then that'll stay suction with this valve until we shut it off. So we can leave that on overnight, and after about an hour or so, it will lose its suction. But yeah, so here we have to have all different types of materials because we do all different types of things, and sometimes in one brace we'll have multiple types of plastics. You have all different types of foams for whatever needs. And in here then we do all the shaping. And with that, you have to have dust extraction, which all these have, and then all different cones for whatever purpose you need them for. You know, grinding, cutting, you don't want your finger on that one. Whatever needs to be done, we can do. It's important we have lights. These work well, these little LED lights. Yeah, and just the big key is to have good suction. And safety, always safe, have to be safe in here. There's lots of ways to get injured. We don't really have any injuries. Get nicks. Sometimes you donate your skin to the science of it, so then you roll out of Band-Aids, but yeah, that's about it. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. And so, of the steps that you showed me, which is the slowest and which is the hardest step?
I think the slowest would be modifying the cast. Take a while. Depends what you're doing. We didn't show you any leather work because we don't have any on the go. Leather work takes a long time because it's gluing and cutting patterns and gluing and sewing. Plaster work takes a while, so each of those AFOs, I would say, to modify them, you're gonna have 45 minutes in them. To fill them, you got another 45 minutes to an hour because you gotta pour it, strip it, clean up. I'm not counting the time it takes for a set. Normally we're setting, plaster sets in about an hour and 15 minutes, you can start to strip it off. If you leave it on longer, it will get really hard to take off. So you want to sort of time it so that you know in an hour and 15 minutes I can start stripping these casts, or you're going to be a lot longer. So yeah, I think the modifying takes quite a while. For the technicians, probably just grinding, assembling, aligning joints. They're bending joints, they take a long time. These joints took a long time. Say it again.
Okay. How long do you keep in contact with patients after giving them their...
After the device?
Yeah, after you give them the device.
So we get them back at 3 months, at 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then basically they're told they have a warranty. So 3 month on fit, 6 month on materials. But we're always a phone call away. So whenever you want to get back to me, get back to me. So with adults, generally they look at, things are fine until they're not. And sometimes they wait a little too long, and then they want us when we're really busy and they have to wait a bit, and that's human life.
Yeah.
Kids we see all the time. Kids are seen through therapy, so therapists will get a hold of the orthopedist and say, oh, you need to look at this, or there's skin irritation. Sometimes a doctor will call and say, he's wearing a device, I'm seeing this, could you look at it? So, or fax. So generally, I always tell people we're a phone call away, we're always here, you just need to let us know.
And then, are there challenges for your patients with familiarity, and how do you help them become more familiar with the device?
Well, we always go over how to, what we call doff and don, put it on, take it off, how to clean it, we give instruction sheet on how to clean it, how to wear it, wearing schedule to start, and we talk to them about, you may or may not need it for sleeping, mostly not if it's lower extremity. You'll wear it at these times. So the familiarity comes with use. So when someone comes back and they haven't used it, they can tell me they're wearing it, but I know they haven't worn it because they can't answer certain questions, or there's no wear marks on the brace. But when they leave here, we want them to be familiar and to actually show us that they can put it on and take it off. And that, or caregivers understand. When it goes to group homes and nursing homes, we like to give a set of number of instruction sheets.
Okay.
Because they always get lost, and pieces and parts get turned upside down, put on the wrong. I've had left feet put on right feet, spinal brace put on upside down. I've seen it all.
That's okay. And then, how have you tackled issues? I mean, obviously you're not their parent, but how have you tackled issues associated with uptake and compliance? This is the one that I know you've talked to me about in the past.
Okay, compliance with scoliosis for teenagers.
Yeah.
If teenagers do anything wrong, anything an adult wants a teenager to do, they're not going to do. So in the sense of scoliosis, back braces, it's a challenge because they can go to school and hide under a lot of clothes and look good. Or they go to school with a brace on and look rigid, and people go, oh, you got a brace, and they tease it. So it's a challenge. It's a real psychological problem. They're doing a study in the US right now, and they got a large number of children's centers doing it, where they're going to look at nighttime bracing for children only versus daytime bracing to see in the end if they actually get the same numbers. Because the kids that say they wear them at school, a lot of them just put them in their locker at school and come home with it on. Mom goes, oh, they wore it all day. So, and others will not take them off, and they'll do gym and everything in them because they don't want people to know. They don't want to tell their best friends. So the real stigma to those. For lower leg braces, They usually function better, so they wear them. So if you function better or you're with less pain, you're going to wear it. That's just it. So compliance becomes a matter of function and pain, less pain, or it's what image do you want me to be? Do I want to be to my peers? So it's really hard. Kids, it's a challenge.
Yeah. And then what about with diabetics?
Well, they can't feel, half of them can't feel anything, so they always tell you they wear it. Some are truthful and some are not, and they come back with horrible wounds, and you're thinking, how does this happen? I can do my pressure guarding, and you're thinking, this should never happen, and then eventually go, oh, well, you know, I don't wear it here and there, and so then you have to retrain them on when they should wear it to be safe. So part of it is about safety.
Yeah. And then, okay. And then, let's end it off on a good note. Last question. What aspect of your work are you most motivated or driven by?
I'm motivated and driven if someone's willing to give me the work. So when I brought in my RGO, that lady, I had a lady, motor vehicle accident on New Year's Eve, really a shame. She was hit, she was injured, her son and husband were not, and she is very high thoracic injury. So she's in an RGO. I've never seen anyone work so hard. So I've always told her, as long as you're working hard, I'll do whatever I can to keep you going. And so they're back for adjustments. She showed you that joint broke, got it welded. We're making a new back brace for her. She walks with a lot of effort and help, but she tries. And so those people motivate me to keep going. That's what I like to see. If they're gonna wear it, I'm happy to do it for them. If they're not gonna wear it, I have other people that will. And so, do I want to waste my time with you?
Yeah.
So, my motivation is if they're motivated.
Cool. Good. Okay. Thank you again, Al.